5 p.m. 14050 Olympic Drive, Clearlake, California. All right. Mr. City Manager.
A roll call first.
That's what it says here. So
All right. Councilmember Councilmember Overton.
Here.
Councilmember Kramer.
Here.
Councilmember Claffey.
Here.
And Mayor Slutin.
Here.
And Vice Mayor Purdock is absent tonight.
he has an excused absence. Sort of.
Family emergency.
Really?
Okay, well, so we're excited to present the proposed budget for fiscal year 21-22. Hopefully you had a chance to review it, and you know, it is the largest budget in the city's history, primarily due to a lot of investment in capital projects. And so what we decided to do, rather than have put slides in a presentation, is just kind of use the OpenGov budget portal and just kind of walk through that. So between Chief White and myself, we'll kind of give a little bit of an overview of the budget, and then we'll go around with the different departments, and each department head will kind of give an overview of significant changes in each of their budget units, and then, you know, just feel free to jump in and ask any questions you have as we go along. A budget message here, and then this is the links that follow through. But I thought we might just start by going over some of the charts that we have in here. So focusing on the general fund first, I mean, even though our budget is, you know, the total budget's a little over 57 million. The general fund budget is just under 8 million. You can see appropriations, and then how the breakdown is here. There's a difference of 600,000 between revenues and appropriations, and that is because we have budgeted 600,000 of fund balance from the current fiscal year in the budget for one-time expenses. We expect the fund balance to come in higher than 600,000, but we wanted to, you know, be conservative, and we will come back at a later time, assuming the fund balance comes in higher, and, you know, make a decision on what to appropriate that money for. But this is what we would consider a structurally balanced budget. So none of the one-time money is used for ongoing expenses like staff. You know, I think that's when you look at a fiscal stability perspective, that's something that's really important. You don't want to be using your fund balance for staff costs or anything like that. So we've detailed, like, there's contract expenditures and sort of equipment supply purchases that are in the budget, that if we needed to, if there was some type of budget crisis, that's something that we could easily, you know, cut out and not have to lay off staff. And I would say having a budget that is like that, I think, is one of the reasons why we didn't have to react so drastically when COVID came on us, like a lot of other places now. You know, we don't have overall reliance on sort of the tourist industry that a lot of agencies, say in Napa County, for example, had. You know, it's a little bit of a different thing, but it's just important to know that when there is a downturn, I think it impacts us a little bit less, at least having to immediately lay off staff or ask for some type of concessions from them. You know, the big chunk of this, of course, is personnel in the general fund. And I do want to point out that even though it is at 8 million, which is a little bit of an increase over the current fiscal year, just with department requests, we had to carve out around $1 million of department requests in order to balance the budget. So while you see big numbers in here because of the capital projects and all that, you know, our sort of traditional discretionary revenue streams like property tax and sales tax and those type of things, you know, are increasing a little bit, but, you know, we aren't flush in cash when it comes to sort of those discretionary revenue streams. I mean, things look okay, but it's just important to know that difference. So, all funds revenue, you're going to have to kind of ignore this PARSAC grant. There's a labeling issue in our chart of accounts. This is really just grant revenue, but the way that is labeled there is a little bit confusing. So again, total appropriations just over 57 million, and the difference there is, that essentially almost 4 million is use of fund balance. We talked about the general fund, but also, for example, there's $1 million in our Series A bond funds that are appropriated in the budget. That there's no new revenue from that. The money's already there. We're just appropriating it. So that difference is between the 57 and the 53 is just use of fund balance in the budget. And then the final thing here, position allocations. 75, just over 75. I'll just click through to the budget portal real quick so you can take a look at this. And there's the opportunity to drill down on a lot of this and get some additional information, but you can see 30% of the employees are in the police department. Additional 10% are funded out of Measure V, and these are full-time equivalents, this number here. So some of these, one position will be split percentage-wise based between general fund, police department, Measure P. Same thing with Measure V and gas tax and all that sort of thing. And then if you scroll down here, you can see the list of all the positions and the percentage breakdown with each department. So we'll talk. I mean, there's really just there's a few positions in the police department that are unfunded that had been previously, and Chief White can talk about that a little bit. The only real additional position that's been added is the facilities maintenance worker position. There is a shift in the parks department. We had a few positions that were partially paid for in taking care of the apartment complex. And now that we don't have that, there was a shift that we had to do this year. And then moving forward, we've dedicated more of those existing staff just completely to parks. So I think those are really the only
And the office assistant is back. They're there, and then I'm not sure about the secondary planning position.
Yeah, it is in the budget. We're recruiting for that now, but we have budgeted for the second planner that was approved previously. Yeah.
And the finance director.
And yes, that is definitely in there.
Well, everything's appropriated. We just don't necessarily have them filled at this moment.
Right.
How many open spots do we have?
Oh, I'm not sure. So we have on the City Hall side, we have a one person in the finance department, and what is the position? Accounting technician or account clerk. And then we have a finance director position, which will be filled in July. Our candidate has an accepted offer on a house, and we're expecting her to be here. Probably July 19th will be her first day, which is good. Okay, and then the assistant associate planner position is vacant. We're recruiting for that now. Although we have our previous person is filling in on a part-time basis on some stuff. And then as far as the police department, I'm not sure what the numbers are. Right?
So we have 3 vacant police officer positions, and then one is currently underfilled who graduates the academy next Thursday, which is exciting. We're down 1 dispatcher position, and we're down 1 animal control officer, soon to be 2, and then 1 kennel technician.
And then how many maintenance workers are?
So right now, we just brought another person on this earlier this week, and that leaves us with 3 vacant maintenance workers. And then when we've never been able to get any part-time workers, I got each of you a copy the org chart if you'd like it.
Yes,
please.
Pass these down. We've got like 10 or more. So we do have a couple more people that have been interviewed that look like good candidates. I think things are improving in that area with the government paying people to not work so well.
Yeah.
It's been really hard. And so that's starting to change a little bit. And people are starting to find employment or look for employment again. So that's helping us. So we'll see how that goes. So at this point, we have that highlighted in yellow. Those are people that we hired in this current fiscal year. We did have some people who left us, 3 people who left us. We replaced those and we were able to get a couple more on board. There's been some shuffling of people to get the right people into the right place. And we feel like we have a really strong team and, you know, we're moving forward. We're far from perfect, but people are learning and growing and getting a lot of good things done.
Is this on your parks and facilities? Or is this kind of includes the Burns Valley Sports Complex that might become online later this fiscal year, next fiscal year?
Yeah, so as that comes online, we may have to look at whether or not we can handle that much more acreage with the people we have. We, of course, are going to be trying to do everything we can as we develop that property to make sure that it's maintenance friendly. I mean, there's things you can do that really require a lot of maintenance, and there are things you can do that reduce the maintenance amount. It can reduce the time consumption significantly, and so we will try and make sure we apply all of those best practices to make it maintenance.
Would that include additional mowers, for instance, or?
So we will need a new mower, a better mower, a mower that will give us a better quality cut, especially since we'll be doing athletic fields and trying to maintain them at a high level so we can attract tournaments and things like that. So that is going to be necessary, but not in this.
Yeah, we don't expect to
Current
have any
budget.
maintenance
Next
over there this fiscal year.
Next
Yeah.
fiscal.
So in 2022, 23, I guess. we just-
Yeah. You know, our hope would be that we'll be able to start construction on the park portion of that project, sometime next season for sure, but we don't expect to be playing ball on it. Yeah.
So, yeah, so that was not included in this upcoming budget because we just don't think it's necessary at this point. We'll get by with what we have and get by with the people we have. And then we're just going to have to look at it again and make sure we have the right number of people to get the work done that is going to need to be done.
Of these 4 folks, are they dedicated to the parks full time in this next
Yes.
calendar year?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Alex is not actually a lead worker. He's kind of filling that slot. He's underfilling it and leading that team. And then you can see we have 2 people who are relatively new to the parks, and they're learning how to do everything.
The to be determined, the to be determined spots, what are they to be? determined?
That's just looking out and saying we may need another person or 2. That isn't a current vacancy though.
Okay.
Just as in the middle there, you see the future roads too with a lead worker. I'm just in talking to Bo and talking to our lead worker, the feeling is that 5 full-time employees, a lead worker and 4 subordinates is what we need for a crew. And if we can get, if we get all of those full-time employee positions filled, we'll have 9 full-time employees. That would give us a crew that we could say is doing grading, and we could have another crew off doing potholing or replacing signs or doing something like that.
So what again is the ideal number for a crew?
5 people, a lead worker and 4 other workers. So that's why I'm just kind of looking at that, thinking that at some point in the not too distant future, we'll have 2 road crews.
So
and
you
we may
need
have
4 more to make that second road trip.
And we may have another person in parks, just depending on how things look.
So back of the napkin map, we're at about 12 to 13 vacancies. What are we doing from a recruitment standpoint?
Well,
I can talk about the police department side. Well, actually, all the sides within PD. So for police officer, as you know, we came to the council and did the change for kind of the recruitment incentive and started looking at it as a relocation piece. We expanded our outreach and hit basically every academy kind of from Central California all the way up to the North Edge. Unfortunately, got a few more bites, but no significant swing one way or another. So we continue our efforts within there. We did pick up the recruit that's in the Fresno Academy who's going to graduate.
Can I just ask a question? When you
Yes.
say we, is that you hitting the trail? Is that?
The department. So we have typically Lieutenant Hobbs kind of oversees the group. And then we have officers, sergeants. It kind of varies. There's a team that kind of goes out to different places. Sometimes we try to take people who graduated a certain academy that they go back because it's more credible to those that are there. So it's increased in terms of like the, drumming up applications and so forth, but the old success rate is still very low. The one thing that did change was council authorized the kind of re-adding of the police trainee position, which I think allowed us to get the one that we have who's going to graduate because what we were competing with, they were ready to offer the same sort of thing. And before we didn't have that. So I think that works or that did work in that case. It continues to be our greatest challenge. Really, the only thing that's saving us right now is that our retention rates, I think, Melissa could probably speak to it, but I think are historic highs as well.
Absolutely.
But it's very risky because the group that's in there now, a majority of them are ones that I hired 3 years ago, they're right at that point where they could choose to go somewhere else. So we're kind of, as much as we're focusing on recruitment, it's also to retention. We've done all different outreach. We've tried radio ads, all different things, social media stuff, that sort of thing. And it just continues to be a challenge. And we talked to other agencies for new creative ideas. We did come up with, so it's on order, but we did order 2 of the dual purpose motorcycles, which will help with kind of the rural patrollers within the city and the motorcyclists rampaging throughout town. And that was something that the employees thought was like an exciting extra assignment. So we're continuing to look for opportunities like that to keep those that we have. On the dispatch front, we just are not getting much of any traction. We've done career things at the schools before COVID went out. We've done radio ads numerous times for those, kind of all different stuff, and we've yet to find it. But we also understand from just even within our region and more outside that is, they're experiencing all the same thing. They're getting like no applicants or one applicant.
What are the requirements for dispatch?
Basically a high school education, being able to pass the background, and the kind of the first loss gap that we get is when they do the test that post requires to have an entry level test, which is kind of like equivalent like an SAT for college where it tests different areas. So that's kind of the gap, but we see even a big gap just from when we get applications to even getting people just to show up for that. Like there's a test scheduled this Saturday, and they're going to have to cancel that and move it because we don't have enough applicants. On the animal control side, for the kennel technician, we did implement, because of recruitment and retention and issues in there over the last few years, we did implement a partnership program in there with the school district. So we actually had a student who was like placed there for a few hours a week. I believe it's through Office of Education. In either event, she liked it. We liked her working there. And she actually just came on board on city payroll, I believe, last week. So I think that's one of kind of a creative way. And the nice thing was when she was there helping extra, didn't cost the city anything. So we're looking at that. As far as the animal control officer positions, that we're actually looking at all options right now, including consolidation with some other provider who provides animal control services for other cities to try to come up with a solution that's sustainable. So
did you lose? You had 2?
we had 2, yeah. So one left to go work for a vet, and then the other one is left potentially to go work for another animal control agency. So we're not exactly sure.
The animal control officer?
Yes.
John?
Yeah. So the challenge in there, and I mean, in talking with the employees and stuff, is that it's very, stressful out there, that even with having the 2 kennel techs, which we increased from only having the 1 on, is just a lot of things to fall on the shoulders. And then obviously on the animal control side, just within that group, just so many different responsibilities, outside pressures and so forth. So we're continuing to look at options.
So when's he?
Yeah, just with all the, it's not a lot of hands to get things done, and, dealing with the volume of animals that we have coming through. They're getting a lot out to rescue, but that takes a lot of time and effort. So then it pulls and leaves somebody else to do stuff. So it's a challenging environment, but we had an encouraging conversation earlier this week, and we're expecting a proposal actually tomorrow to provide some sort of interim solutions and then maybe look towards something long-term. The other positive side is that, like particularly this group, we've already developed a relationship through the rescue side, and so that exists there.
So animal control officer, both of them are now gone or will be soon?
One is already gone. One will leave, I believe, in another week. Yeah, that's a challenge. And I mean, on the kennel tech side, it's not uncommon that, Lieutenant Hobbs is down cleaning kennels at times when we can't cover in there because we have such few staffing. And just day-to-day managing that group just takes up a lot of time. So that's why we're looking at other options in there.
Has there been a thought, like at the senior center where you developmentally disabled, is there a reason why we couldn't use them there to help clean kennels or do things like that?
We're open for any group that provides. And unfortunately, what our challenge has been, even on the volunteer side, is people can say, oh, we have a whole bunch of people that want to volunteer. And then when we actually get forth with it, it doesn't pan out. What we have found is that some groups indicate that, certain individuals are more willing to work for a nonprofit, even if it's the exact same facility doing the exact same job, than to work for the city for all various reasons. And so that's what we're trying to figure it out.
I can talk to the group
Yeah.
that I work with and just see if they're, I
Yeah,
meet with them
we're,
every day.
And we're open to all.
Yeah, I see them every day, so, and they're looking for other places to get experience for their people, because, the whole thing is to train them into, some of them are very workable, can be working, so
Yes.
they're trying to get them where they're at that status, so I'll talk to them about that.
So you have an interim coverage for the animal control?
Not at this time. We're working on that.
We're
We're trying to pull off a miracle.
Beginning of next week.
Yeah.
Next
You
week.
two can do that.
pull off the fastest contract
The
ever
rabbit out of
for
the hat.
So,
services.
so from a strategic perspective, we have a lot of vacancies, a lot of challenges across multiple departments. I know last year we explored executive recruiting as an outsource option. Have we thought about bringing in a dedicated recruiter to help fill these vacancies that are quite frankly going to be ongoing, given the challenges we have?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I would say no. I mean, it's important to know that, like, say, the assistant planner position, the account clerk, those positions I would consider to be normal turnover that just happens. Like, those are not normally particularly difficult positions to fill. Where we have persistent problems are dispatch, police officers, and maintenance workers. And then executive level positions, for example, public works director, it took us a long time to fill that, and then finance director, of course, which we use executive recruiters on those positions. But we haven't really talked about, I mean, maybe you've talked internally, and we've talked about a lot of ideas on police officer for sure. It's just, it's a nationwide problem at this point. It's going to be difficult for us to compete, I think, for a long time. I mean, one thing that I think is really important in that regard, just in this environment, is support of the city and the city council of the department itself is not something that you see everywhere. And so just figuring out how to communicate that with folks is going to be helpful as well. I mean, we've talked confidentially about some, negotiation options that may help there, but I don't know if other agencies are using more of a typical executive recruiter for.
Yeah, I mean, it's a I would say a developing market and very expensive. I know some agencies spend like $200,000 on firms that make the fancy videos and everything else, and I've yet to see any significant results with it.
Yeah.
I think we did, the interesting thing is, like, what works for some doesn't work for the other. So even on like the executive recruitment side, we actually changed recruitment firms and everything else to try to get, and I believe actually our ultimate one came from our internal recruitment. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a challenge depending upon who they reach out to. We have another agency that approached us, like on the dispatch side, they can't maintain it. They're much larger and everything else, and are looking to us as, some potential
I don't
options.
think anybody can maintain a dispatcher.
Yeah, and so we've
they all
talked
have
and,
problems with that. It's a very stressful job.
Yeah, I think one of our things internally and kind of, in the details about what we are looking next year is, I shared with you, like we changed the recruitment brochure, right? Something simple, but to take that and expand out, like to have a dedicated recruitment page, I think there's a lot of value in that. If nothing else, just that, kind of the negative image type stuff, it's important to have something that when you go to search, you see that as well, and we can point people to.
Well, I guess my concern is, I feel like you're doing too much work in recruiting, and you're probably doing too much work in recruiting, and you're doing too much work in recruiting. And if we had a resource internally that could take some of that strategic work off, some of the busy work off, and free you guys up to come in and be more impactful with your touch points on candidates, I think that might.
You would create a position that is just for recruitment.
Yep. And I mean, we're not looking to spend $200K on
Yeah,
it,
no,
right?
right.
Like, but
Yeah,
60 to 80K for
Part-time
a
person.
mid-level recruiter who can potentially fill some of these positions, generate a pipeline so that you're not going from academy to academy, or you're just going to the ones that really are going to make an impact. Something to think about.
So one of the things years ago, many years ago, when we first started at the police department, they offered, there was a housing thing where they offered to help them purchase a house. Is that something that we might be able to look at to?
Used to have,
would we
it's
be
like the
able to-
cops in the neighborhood program.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. I
yeah.
remember that they helped buy some of these,
Yes.
help them purchase their houses. So-
Yeah, you could get it. Unfortunately, not those things don't exist, or you can't create things. It's just I think that the problem is like, for example, the sheriff's office, they have a dedicated recruiting team or whatnot. And even they're having challenges. So it's difficult. What I'd like to see, and again, we kind of have a little bit in with ours, but it's this next year to kind of continue to ramp up that material and stuff so that we have, like when we go to an academy, for example, we used to that a very basic, they actually didn't even have a slideshow. Then they went to a little PowerPoint, and now we have a pretty fancy one that's, interactive and people are interested in. And so I think to invest within that area. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff comes down to, the dollars and cents for the positions. And when we get to ours, I'll talk about what we had to do with positions just to make things balanced. So it's really
So is
tough.
it better for us to spend the money on giving better position money instead of recruitment? Maybe that is the recruitment, is better pay. We're sitting there talking about all these positions, getting this and this and this, but would it be more beneficial for us to take all that money and say, this can go into higher wages or something?
Well,
I just think it's
the
something we should
higher
look
people
at.
get paid, the easier it's
Right.
going to be. But it's
We have
not
to
going to solve
I say
the
we have to
police
sustain
officer
it.
problem. It's just way more complicated
Yeah,
than that.
well, police
unfortunately.
officers are always a problem. There are people come and they go. That's part of it. Dispatchers, I don't think we've ever had have we ever had a full staff dispatch department for
I'm not
very
su-
long?
I'm not sure.
Maybe a month.
I think one thing though to not forget is that because I agree that, strategically looking at it, I think that the best thing that we have going is that the council is pretty agile. So I talk to other agencies and we're bouncing stuff off and say, hey, we tried this and this, it's going to take 6 months to a year to get our board to approve this or our council, whatever else. And so I think as long as we remain that way, we've tried out things and some things quite haven't worked, as long as, you guys as a policymakers are willing to extend that flexibility, that's what we need.
And the recruitment
Does that
incentive
mean
thing,
we're
I think,
awesome?
was.
Well, it's helpful though, because they truly talk about, I asked other places, I'm like, what would help you? And they're like, well, it takes too long with our internal bureaucracies to do things. And that's something that, you guys have a tremendous amount of influence in. And so not to, it's easy to overlook the successes that we've had and to do it. I don't think, from the police side, the staffing, of additional people to go out and all that stuff, it's difficult to have because on that side, it's more the credibility. They want to see somebody from that agency in uniform and all that stuff. Perhaps on kind of some of the administrative work of doing it might be helpful with it. But then I talked to another agency who they contract out all their HR stuff and thought, well, to relieve everybody, it'll be good. And it's been a horrible experience. They're doing twice as much work. So it's hard to put it.
You've said in the past that some of your best recruiters are your own police officers. Can we use that more?
I think we're exploiting it to the degree that it can be used. They are continuing to be, when people come up, we send them out to ride with them because there are a lot of unique challenges around here to pull people in. And I think they do a good job at this point
Could they be incorporated with something like what you're talking about, a recruitment campaign where, where they're even beyond their just riding with them, but making a statement, hey, this is a great work environment, come up and try something like.
Yeah.
How many people have come from, the lower positions, and that doesn't need to be necessarily a postgraduate kind of thing, that they have gone through the ranks and are now a police officer. Is that a route? In other words, kind of.
It is like CSO typically, or we've seen with animal control, but typically CSO has kind of been the route where people historically have gone into there. I think one of the areas that we continue to toss around is like sending somebody right away to the academy. Still, there's a lot of reasons, and take too long to discuss, but for why we don't pursue that as a primary route. It might end up resulting in others, but we also have where with the recruit position, once they start, we could immediately pick them up. So if they're a viable candidate and they can come up with the stuff, I mean, there's other things out there. We could come up with like a grant program and say, hey, if you're local, you can apply for a grant or whatever to get started. And then if you do okay, then you could, get hired. I mean, there's different opportunities that we could look at.
Because that would tie in what David is saying.
Yes.
You don't have to be involved in that.
Right. I agree.
What's the most time consuming part of the recruitment? Is it the background check, or is it?
We can process a candidate very fast. It's
Okay.
getting the candidate
Candidate
there.
there.
Yeah, or getting them to follow through.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the testing, takes time managing the backgrounds, but we have it down to, when I came here, I think their turnaround sometimes were 4, 5, 6 months long. We can turn around a candidate in like 30 days or less.
Yeah.
If we can get everything in
So
line.
that's not a problem.
And timing is really important on these recruitments. Like
Yeah.
if you mess around and delay and whatnot, I mean, people, if
Yeah.
they're
Well, if
talented,
they're,
they
if they're
found
not
something
interested,
else,
what the
right,
heck?
yeah.
Why should I?
So, well, I think we can stay on the police department's stuff forever and the hiring and
Well, I
and
appreciate
recruitments,
the,
but,
Interest and concern. I mean,
Well,
there's so many, we've talked about the housing thing too. I mean, for
Yeah,
some
we've
people it
talked
may
about
work,
it.
for some people, you aren't going to be able to have the house that they want, but even on the interim basis or something like that, we just haven't felt like that at this point, like that's been a deterrent. But I
Yeah.
told Andrew before, like,
well, I know
we'll go
that's
buy a
how.
house if it's going to help this problem. you know?
I
Build 'em a
I
house.
know that is how we got some of our police officers when we first started. Some of them
Mhm.
came because they were able to have a home. And of course, that back then there was a lot more houses and it wasn't as expensive. So, but there was the grant process there that they could do. But I'm thinking, well, we do have the housing. Many of them, if they're starting, they're probably low income, so they probably could qualify for even our low income program.
Well,
and
yeah, I
stuff.
mean,
So-
the one,
So I just say
Yeah.
that use that as
Yeah.
a tool, I guess. Use that as a tool that we have housing fund. If it's a tool that they can use, most of them when they're starting off are not making a bunch of money. So they probably fall into the category that they would qualify
Andrew,
even on a normal basis. So
I would say, Andrew, that you have ideas like that. Bring them,
Oh,
forward. Let's run them
no,
out.
we talked through it. I mean, I think that it's just, there's no easy answers. I think that's what everybody's
No.
finding. It's
Yeah.
really-
Well, if it was easy, everybody
It's
would.
tough, right? But I mean, back to my original thing though, is I think, we have brought and continue to bring forth that stuff. And I think as we think of stuff or somebody has an idea, or you hear of another
throw it out
agency,
there.
and I know, different ones you guys regularly send stuff, if you'll see an article or whatever, say, hey, what about this? And so I say we just keep doing that.
well, I would say, I mean, the recruitment incentive policy was instrumental in being able to seal the deal with our finance director probably.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
Yeah, and then the other
That's good to know.
the other piece too, to not overshadow, is the retention side
mhm.
is equally or greater importance, because if I had to choose between the two, I'd rather retain and be shorter,
Right,
because they're
right.
much more effective to the community than
So
brand new
I
people
agree.
cycle.
so what helps out? Again,
Money.
Housing
Money.
first,
It's a
because
whole-
great money.
Yeah, it would, it's the whole package, and it's the community package, and,
So we just need to kiss up to our police officers and keep them around.
I heard that you're
Okay.
buying bicycles for them.
yeah, we got these e-bikes, they'll ever ship.
Hopefully you'll see.
Bi-
the
We
one-
want them
bicycles?
Yeah,
Bicycles?
Yeah, they're e-bikes, so they're like
Right.
electric.
That kind of little
thing,
power
or
bikes?
Hybrid.
Yeah.
Hybrid things, yeah.
They're cool.
And those will be for.
The mayor
downtown?
already has one, so, but no lights and sirens on yours.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you know, if you guys did want to scale up, I think you'd have some support. But in the meantime, us being flexible and if you guys come up with great ideas, we're ready to help you out.
Thank you for that.
Thanks.
We being,
The council.
The council.
okay.
Or
But you had
I guess I'm
something else
speaking-
going here.
Just
Speaking
said
for-
you were
sorry,
council,
I am
right?
willing.
Gotta
No,
pat, you gotta pat us on the back every once in a while too. We're okay with that.
Okay, so as far as like kind of an overview, we're kind of down into the weeds, which is fine, whatever you want to talk about. But there's one other point that I did want to make sure to make, because it isn't reflected in the revenue or expense information here, is that, and we talked about this at our last workshop, but this budget does include a $1 million increase in the general fund reserve. So it would raise that to 1.625 million, which is a long ways from what, 5-6 years ago when there was zero reserves. So this puts us at a place which is just over 20% of general fund appropriations, which is a pretty good place to be in. I mean, the GFOA recommends, you know, I think 5 to 15%. And so feel good about that. And that's another key piece for, you know, just fiscal stability. And while a lot of the story about this budget is about that infrastructure investment, which is something that, of course, the city hasn't done a very good job of over the years, and is also going to have a dramatic impact on our ongoing discretionary revenue streams, because, you know, the airport project in particular and some of these other investments are really going to impact over the long term. But I think it is important to note that, you know, we have to make sure that, you know, we're on strong fiscal foundation, and that reserve adjustment's a big piece of
Talk
it.
about,
that's another item that we need to publicize, that, you know, because that we,
so the airport property is, can you give us a little breakdown on that? Not a long, like we just did, but just kind of a short term of what you plan and the time frame you plan on that?
Well, so, you know, we took a different approach, and, you know, the easiest way for the city to do it, and the way it's been approached previously, was having a sort of master developer come in and put all this together. That hadn't been working for us with the folks who we're working with. And so, you know, the city's kind of taking that on right now and trying to bring all the pieces together. Now, it's a lot of work, but very, very optimistic about the place that we're at. In fact, our retail consultants are telling us our biggest problem right now is that we need more land to develop. So,
Well, that's always good to know that part. Hey, I'm happy with that.
Can I
But-
publicize that?
But this airport thing has just been such a.
so,
pain.
yeah, I
We
mean,
needed to
I
take
think we're in a
control of it. I
great
think
place.
that's
We
great.
have some initial, like LOIs signed on various things, which is good. You know, having the money in this budget to be able to do the infrastructure is really important. And these folks love the idea that the city is so directly involved in this. So,
Beyond the
That's all good.
street, what is that infrastructure?
well, I
Like,
mean,
you
we're
have
talking
9.7
water,
million?
sewer, dry utilities,
some mass grading probably.
and hopefully some grading. You know, I mean, with the way the road alignment will be, you know, that upper yard section is kind of up on a hill. So that's gonna, so the where we're at right now is we're talking to a lot of people. There's a lot of interest. We're trying to figure out how to sort of situate the site and to situate our roads so that we can, I was hoping to break ground on some of our infrastructure this year. I think that's probably not going to
Okay.
happen, but I
Maybe
think
early
it
spring
is
next year?
doable in the early spring.
Okay, it'll be in this coming fiscal year,
Still in this
in
fiscal
the
year.
fiscal.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
and-
just excited that we have something.
It's
else.
gonna happen.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean,
But
it's
we also, I
been-
mean, I feel some sense of urgency. I mean, you see, you know, we're starting to see a lot of inflation
Right.
and the
Everything's
concern
gonna
if
go
that
up.
continues, you know, we could be, you know, in a situation where all these, right now, the retail interest is hot and we need to take advantage of
Yeah.
it. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So I say do whatever we need to do to get it going. That's,
Well, and I would say, I mean, we can talk more detail about the capital
Yeah.
projects. You know, there's a list and we have a good amount of money. I mean, with everything, you know, there's over 7 million in this budget just for the airport. That's going to get us a long ways. I'm not 100% sure at this point if it's going to get us everything that we need, but my feeling is, you know, we can get grant funding for some of this. And the mayor and I were talking about this earlier today. It's just a matter of, it's going to stretch out the timing if we try to go through HCD and get additional infrastructure dollars. I think it's so important and there's so much, you know, revenue for us on the back end of this, that if we need to take some of the appropriations, say from Lakeshore Drive corridor improvements and shift it over to get the airport going, I know we can get additional grant revenue to complete the rest of that project. And I really think that this needs to be the highest priority to keep.
well, I
moving forward.
think
So,
if this had been, I wish I'd have had you, 10 years ago. Because, I mean, there was a lot of funding where they could have done a lot of things, but unfortunately
Yeah, no.
that didn't happen. And there was grants that were out there to do a lot of this stuff
Yeah.
too. And I'm going to go back through some of my stuff that I have because there may be some grants that I just don't know about that I had sent over, you know, before that might be something that's still going. So I'm going to go through those and check to see because
Sure.
some of it was for the Lakeshore Drive design.
Yeah.
And they just never filed for it. It was like,
Yeah.
and back then it was like a 1.2 million and it was a lot of money back
Yeah.
then, you know, I mean, go back, you know, 15 years ago, you could have done a
So it's
lot
gonna
with
be
that
more.
kind of money.
This budget
So-
has 4.1 million currently for Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah,
So I don't know that it's going to get us all the way to say Old Highway 53 from here,
Yeah.
but it'll get us a pretty good.
Is that
ways.
including lighting on that and everything?
Well, the current plans don't include that. That's what we need to
We need a
work on that
lighting.
because it needs to
grant.
include, in my opinion, at least, you know, lighting, like trees and, you know, landscaping, all that stuff, and probably some, you know, public parking facilities along the way. And, you know, there's a lot of drainage issues and, you know, there's just a lot.
Right, there's a lot of
to it.
issues.
We haven't talked about it in this, but we have talked in the past about Olympic Drive and Old Highway 53 with regard to the lighting.
Mhm.
Is there anything in the plans in this budget year?
No, but Dale's working on creating a lighting district. So.
Okay, hey,
Landscape and lighting district, landscape and lighting district,
yeah,
yes.
I mean, I don't think anybody wants more property taxes. That's the first thing.
Well,
But, you know, I think at this point, I mean, sometimes there's just nothing else you can do, but to create.
I think there is, during the, what is it, that was around 80s, there were a lot of landscape and lighting districts put
Mhm.
together
Oh, yeah,
all over
yeah.
the place. And most of them that I've seen has been successful and people have at the end appreciated it. So,
But I know everybody wants them, but, you know, most people look at their property taxes and say, oh, half my property taxes are already going to all these bonds. I know I do. It's like, yeah, how much
Well,
more
you
can
know,
you pay?
if
How
you-
much more can you pay? So.
yeah, you know, how much
Yeah.
more can you stand at the other
Well,
end of that?
hopefully, hopefully these developments like the airport and all of it,
Yeah, they
ancillary
influx
things
it.
that happen will increase the property values around here,
Exactly.
create
well,
property
it's
values
hard, you
around
know, I
here.
mean, this is in a lot of ways, I mean, we're kind of unique in that most of the city was developed as an unincorporated area of the county.
Mhm.
And it wasn't done right.
Right.
I mean,
No.
we're trying to create a real city after the fact with amenities that folks expect when they live in a city.
Well,
And
This,
so
this town started in probably 3 or 4 different sections. Burns Valley was a
People buy.
development, then
Yeah.
the middle part of the old Clear
How
Lake
many people
Highlands.
do you know bought the property with it? They hadn't even looked at it. They just bought a piece of land, come up here. There wasn't even
And
a
the whole
road. They just
Chip-
made their
and-
road.
And the whole Chapman tract was
Yeah. So,
sold long distance.
Yeah,
So,
so I
you're absolutely
agree.
right. There's no, we're going back and
Right.
doing a lot of things. And finally, we're making some progress on that. But again, and if we get the airport development going, that's going to increase some or create some values. Certainly, if we get some of these housing developments going, that's going to create property
that's what I think.
values. I mean, new property values as
Right.
opposed to raising our taxes
Right.
on the,
But we need
Ones
to
we
get
have.
housing with this development, because where comes more jobs comes more housing. And right now,
yes.
I hate to say it, not only is there just like no rentals in this town for anybody that can afford anything, and purchase prices, there's not even that big of a thing. So we've got to have these housing projects start coming in.
I think they're starting to get some,
Yeah.
some real interest in it. It's just a matter of getting the right kind of developer to do it.
Right.
So, I mean, you don't want a guy that has built restaurants to do a housing
I
development,
agree.
those kind of things. You have to be the right one that can, do cookie cutter kind of work. 'Cause that's what housing development is. I had another question though. How much in the general fund is from cannabis related businesses income?
Revenue.
Well,
Revenues,
I
yeah.
mean, it's, the exact number would be a little difficult to calculate, but from development impact fees, we're, related to cannabis, I think it's like 280,000 or something like that. It's been kind of a up and down thing. I mean, we've brought in 250,000 previously, and then one of the businesses that was creating this significant amount of revenue, they sold it to a corporate group, which actually closed it down and laid everyone off. And now the previous owner is in the process of working with us to get that back and opening it back up again. We have several new permits. We sent letters out to all of our permittees and told them, like, if you don't have your stuff going by July 1, we're pulling all your permits to try and get some stuff going there. We have a few new ones in the works, so it's gonna grow. I mean, why I say I can't give you the exact number is some of these folks, we get actual sales tax through the state allocation from them, but it's the dispensaries primarily. It's a relatively small amount on that side, but there could be a lot of growth potential there. We're just not
there
Seeing
yet.
it.
we're
Yeah.
not there yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see it come in.
So
and then,
if you get $250,000, how many positions could you fill to deal with some of these other?
250,000 more?
Yeah.
I mean, what? It's 2 cops. Maybe it's slightly more.
2 cops with benefits and raises in the future. Okay.
The one on Olympic now, it appears to me to have the potential to more than double anything that we have going right now.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, the potential's there. I just did a tour this week. I mean, they're doing a lot of work. It looks like they're doing really quality work. But
It's quality equipment.
they're hoping to be operating by the end of the calendar year. So we'll see. So
They're not
maybe,
pulling their permit on July 1st.
no, theirs is fine. They're active. I don't know. We're happy to talk about whatever you want. I was going to just quickly go through the things I'm responsible for. I mean, the rest of the agenda is primarily just the budget, other than actually formally adopting it, other than the consent calendar. So from our perspective, if you want to go ahead and keep having the workshop discussion beyond 6 o'clock, there's no reason that, that's entirely up to you guys. So the city attorney budget, I'll just kind of go down through here. City council budget, no significant changes. I think there's a slight decrease because we had a little bit more equipment in that budget in the current fiscal year related to some of the remodeling and stuff. The city attorney budget, there's a small increase. They get a CPI, and we're expecting there may be, some continued litigation expenses this year. City manager budget itself, no significant change there. Non-departmental, which is kind of where we budget a lot of stuff that doesn't really have a specific home somewhere else. I guess, and feel free to jump in if you want. I mean, looking through there was a couple of things that caused there to be an increase this year. One was that's where our debt payment is for our energy bonds, which paid for the solar projects and the HVAC upgrades. last year, for whatever reason, only one of those payments was included. So it's about a $40,000 increase there. And then all of our insurance premiums basically went up. And so pretty significant increase related to that. So
That's our-
Yeah, so I did put together a little bit of information on that if you want me to go talk.
Let me just ask a quick question
Yeah.
before you go.
Yeah.
How's our solar thing working? Because I know at the beginning it wasn't
Yeah.
working so well, so.
I mean, I think there's some benefit there. I mean, you know, we have, they're supposed to like monitor the system. I mean, we started out, we went almost a year with some of the inverters that didn't work,
Right.
and then we had to pay a true up bill. I mean, some of that money we got back, but it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, Sorry.
So it
Thank you.
hasn't been as advertised. then.
Well, it's definitely not been as,
Successful as
Yeah.
well, yeah.
I mean, you know, when you are planning on, you know, having free energy for a year
And you
then
get a
don't,
$26,000 bill.
and you're paying debt service on that expense
Yeah.
too. Like the idea was that the energy savings would be more than the debt service, right? Well, the first couple of years, that certainly hasn't been the case.
Plus advertisement.
So Alan was alluding to our insurance premiums, which I just wanted to talk a little bit about it, and I'll make it short than my little one-page go over here. But just in short, the general liability market is right now experiencing some instability. We're finding that not just for our pool, but everywhere, there are increases across the board with lowered coverage, increased deductibles, and so underwriting standards have tightened. We're seeing the premiums increase at a percentage that we haven't seen since the 1980s. So, and that's for general liability, our auto, our employment insurance. So while there is a slight increase, the pool is taking a hit and anticipating next, not 21, 22, but in 22, 23, we're going to see a little bit more of an increase than we're anticipating, but than we've seen in the past. However, in good news, the workers' comp market for insurance was pretty straightforward and pretty easy this year. So the rate is based on our payroll cost. Our payroll costs, you're seeing an increase this year because our payroll cost increased. And that matches up to the self-insured retention. If we don't hit our $500,000 self-insured retention for this fiscal year as a pool, our costs will actually decrease next fiscal year about $1 million pool-wide. So there's some good news and there's some bad news. General liability, all of those others increased, and we're still seeing some instability in our rates. So they may, before July 1st, we may hear that some excess coverage is increasing, but our workers' comp is stable and possibly decreasing next fiscal year. But, you know, because our payroll costs are fluctuating and going up, while our costs are going down per payroll, our payroll increases, so our costs are going up, if that makes sense. So another point is PARSAC is again merging with REMIF and forming the California Intergovernmental Risk Authority, or CIRA. That's going to be effective July 1st. So PARSAC has to liquidate some of its assets and premium adjustments. So we're going to see about $176,000 in revenue effective July 1st from PARSAC as a liquidation of our retrospective premium adjustments, and some equity that we had in the building that they've sold. So.
And then so now they're joining forces here. So is our premium,
A rollover.
is there going to be a difference in our premium with them, or is it going to kind of stay?
So
Semis.
it
I mean, we're gonna
depends
have
on the
some-
market,
Yeah,
but
we're gonna have
we
some
are
increases,
getting
I'm
the
assuming.
quotes as CIRA.
Okay.
So the quotes aren't just Parsec or Remif, it's as Sierra.
Okay.
So that's what I was just talking about. It's still pool wide. We're seeing the costs go up in liability. So,
Just hopefully because it's a larger pool, if we have our own experience, I guess it should kind of dilute some of that, our exposure to cost increases because it's a larger
Yeah,
group,
if-
but-
our X-Mod isn't, as bad as it used to be.
Mhm.
And I'm sure, Joyce
Yeah.
knows this. We did have an experienced mod of, a little bit higher than the rest of the pool because of some losses that we've had in the early 2000s. So, but that is
That's
getting
kinda getting
better,
into
and with
That's getting
the,
into the past now, so.
Yeah,
it may be
and-
changing there.
and, with a wider pool, our experience is better.
That's good. That's good.
So,
Happy to hear
Okay,
that.
any other questions on that? I'll go through these other ones real quick. And so like the RDA and Housing Successor Agency, those are just based on like, the ROPS that you guys approved previously. So no significant changes there. I mean, there's a few expenses related to disposition of properties that we can charge for that. Series A bonds, currently there's just over 1.1 million in fund balance there. So there's just a couple things in the budget that went ahead and appropriated that funding for. One was a little bit more additional work that's needed at animal control for some concrete around the kennel areas. So there's 100,000 for that. And then I'm not sure that we're going to need quite that much. And then, we applied for the Highlands Park grant. That was a little over 3 million, I think. I forget the exact number. But that didn't include the frontage improvement project along there. And so we appropriated $1 million of the Series A to go towards that project. That's probably more than is needed as well, but of course we can shift that around based on our needs. But and then Series B, of course, we have the homestead program funded in there still, and then there's some additional dollars. We had been using some of that money to do work on the apartments, which isn't necessary anymore. So I think we'll have to make a decision hopefully sometime in the next year. Do we want to throw more money at the homestead program, or is there some other housing related project that we want to support? I mean, it could be used for infrastructure, but the housing projects that we have going right now, they would probably disagree with me, but I don't feel like that they really need that money to get those projects going. There's a lot of money out there. So this does have to be low to moderate income. We have a fair amount of flexibility on
What's the
what moderate
definition of moderate?
It's whatever we make it, according to our city attorney. I mean, I
Within
use that a little bit in
reason,
jest,
right.
within reason, but we do have some flexibility there. So,
When you say there's a lot of money out there, what do you mean by that?
well, just for affordable housing projects.
Okay.
I mean,
In other words, we don't have to throw our money at a
I don't think
developer
that we
that
do.
can get
There's
it.
with tax credits and those,
Yeah.
like the one in the corner of Bird Valley. and
50 million in tax
Yeah.
credits.
Well, wasn't the homestead targeting the moderate income folks?
Yes, that's the argument that we used. It's the moderate income folks. That's why we kind of created a definition about what moderate income is. And that's our justification for using that money.
And
How much money's in that, in Series B again?
So we have an additional, beyond what's allocated for the homestead program, we have an additional 1.5 million. Roughly. So,
Move on.
okay. And then the last one, community development. So the changes there just related to, it's carrying over, but we have an additional staff person over the budget that was adopted last year. But there's not an increase in the budget because we reduced the contract services that we've been, we had the zoning ordinance and some stuff like that, a lot of expensive things, and we were relying on Gary Price more than we are currently with our sort of in-house staff. So we were able to reduce that and, so I guess from there, I mean, maybe we just start with Melissa and go around if you want to just kind of give a brief overview of anything that you think the council might be interested in.
I think that Alan hit on most of it already, and we talked about insurance. The only thing that I had added was, the proposed budget for administrative services is substantially the same with the addition of the facilities maintenance position and the office assistant position. There's a little bit of increase in some MOU required expenses and supplies, minor. But I did want to say that in preparing this year's budget, the implementation of Tyler was essential, because in this year we can take a look at last year's actual expenses, which helped prepare this year's proposed budget. It was amazing in my experience. It was very.
That was supposed, I mean, it was like, before it was like doing it blindfold.
I know, I
Yeah,
don't know how they did
exactly.
it before. I don't know how you guys did it before, because that's, to me, is like, I'd be lost if I didn't have where I can compare and just adjust.
Well,
So,
that being said, there were some increases, if you've gone through them, to see where I took what was actually spent this fiscal year and used it to forecast next year. And one of those things was the community center and also building maintenance. So in looking at historical actuals, I used the community center actuals to reflect what was actually spent in utilities and use that to forecast next year. So that was an increase across the board. We weren't budgeting enough in propane. We weren't budgeting enough in water and sewer. So that's where our increases were for the community center. And then
Water and sewer, you said, were the increases?
yes, and
Kind of all utilities.
all
One
utilities,
of the
yeah,
things
except
that,
for
you know,
electricity.
we were relying on, we would look at what was in the budget the year before and budget the same amount, because we didn't really have access to the actuals, so.
And we did switch around some,
Hey, that's not good.
some bills were being paid out of, different line items. So we're trying to consolidate all of those under building maintenance. So that's a bit of a change. So that's why you're seeing some increases there. So, but let's see, I think really that's all I had, because we've gone over most of everything else.
You want to say anything about finance? I mean, there's not really any change.
I'll just do it when I
Okay,
go around.
go ahead now.
So one other thing I wanted to point out on the org chart is we no longer have a supervisor position. The position's still there. We just, we're not filling it probably anytime soon. And so that is making a difference in our budget as well. Bo is doing a great job filling the position that Mike was in. He's moved up and he's really taken charge and doing a great job for us. On to what's going on in Public Works. We have been hit kind of hard in some areas because of lack of materials. For instance, we were putting in a backflow preventer. We could not get any 2-inch pipe, 2-inch PVC. Just, it was not available in the whole county. And so we ended up going with galvanized so that we could actually get the backflow preventer in place. We couldn't, there's none available. It's hitting us, it's impacting our Measure B project because the Highlands Water wants to go in front of that project and do their, replace some of their lines. And so they're asking us to wait to hold off our project until they can do those lines.
How long will we have to wait?
Well, we don't know.
Well, then we're gonna go ahead.
Okay.
We're-
So that's,
it's because they can't get the piping, is that
They
correct?
can't.
Well, I mean, that was part of it. They also waited again until the last minute to
Yeah.
decide they needed to do something.
right.
Too late.
And we've
Get
been
it
working
out.
on this project and in fact, they've had the same information as our Measure B committee. They've known that this project was coming up for a number of years. And yes, they've just waited and now they want us to wait for them to
So
get their.
we've delayed a little bit, but I mean, at some point, we may not get good bids if we delay. So
Yes.
we're just gonna move forward.
Right.
And they're gonna have
The
to
longer
do
we
it.
wait, the price is gonna,
Yeah,
gas
the
is
longer we
going
wait,
up.
the higher it is.
Asphalt is going up.
They understand that if they go behind us, it's not, they're gonna.
They do.
replace it.
That's why they
Side
actually
to
started
side.
doing something. the
I
last
didn't
2
get that
years.
last year.
So,
Okay.
They've done
So-
that a long time.
no-
So,
no-
so
no sympathy.
we are being impacted by shortage of materials in a lot of ways. Just trying to get our pumps online, getting PVC for pumps or pumps in general, equipment, trucks and things. Just been really hard because everybody shut down and laid people off or sent them home. They didn't work. Factories kind of went on to skeleton crews and just weren't producing as much. Now things are starting to pick up. And so the surplus that may have been available during the shutdown has been consumed. And so they're scrambling to get those products back available to us. So it's causing some problems for us. We will press forward. In fact, we're not changing our schedule for closing that bid. It's going to go ahead and close when we said it was going to close. We've never told anybody otherwise, contractors. And so we'll have the Measure V and the Sulfur Fire Rehab will close. They're real close to each other. So our hope is that these big companies will bid both of them in the hopes that they can get both and do both. And that will hopefully reduce our cost because they'll be working an even bigger project than either one of them separately. Burns Valley.
So the sulfur fire and the Measure V, the bids are due when?
So the Measure V is, we're supposed to be opening those on, that's not correct. I have 6/14.
I think it's July 14th or 15th.
That should be 7/14, not 6/14. And the Sulfur Fire is like the next day, 7/15.
July 8th. I thought you said July 8th. But we're hoping to award both of them on July
8th? No.
Well,
July
15th.
July
right?
15th, yeah. So we're excited about that. Of course, we do have a fly in the ointment, so to speak, on the Sulfur Fire project. They've required a lot of additional work, reports and such that they wanted to
HCD.
review and CD. So they probably won't appreciate being called the fly in the ointment, but anyway.
I don't think they're watching. so.
Yeah.
Probably not.
They probably don't care what you call them.
Butterfly in you.
Other smaller projects that we have going on, we've got gates that we're going to be installing up in the Gobi area so that we can control access to that area along with the K-rail. So those gates will be going in soon. We're working on improving the lighting of the tennis court, splash pad for the park. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to look at the bass sculpture out here in the park.
Yeah.
You said you're cruising, what'd you say? I didn't quite hear the word.
On the which ones?
On the
Splash-
tennis court and.
Oh, we're going to be improving the lighting on the tennis court, putting in new fixtures.
Yeah.
That will be LED fixtures and give us actually really high quality of light there. And the other thing we're going to do at the same time is put outlets on those poles so that we can put cameras on all 4 poles, and we'll have some of them aimed into the skate park.
Skate park. Thank you.
Probably one over at the splash pad and one at the playground. So we'll be able to kind of cover that
The
area.
exercise equipment.
Yeah, that would be covered as well.
How-
That's
Thank you.
another project we're trying to figure out, because now that that pad's there, we're looking at it and going, okay, do we leave an 8-inch drop off, or do we try and bring in additional?
It doesn't need power, so.
No, he's talking about the ground.
Talking about-
I'm talking about bringing up the ground around the pad,
Yeah,
because it's an 8-inch drop off, and
yeah. It's
So,
gonna need to be brought
what
up.
do we need to do to fix that? And then also the access point from the sidewalk has a signpost right in the middle of it. So we're going to have to do something.
We'll cut it off. Don't worry about it.
I think that's actually an ADA parking
Yeah.
space.
I
But we can pour another section of concrete and just extend the sidewalk another 6 feet. We'll be fine.
Quick question about the lights. How are those going to be controlled?
So they will be controlled 2 ways. There will be motion sensors on the light that will turn them on, but they will also be controlled the hours that they can turn on will be controlled by us.
Okay.
So if someone shows up at 8 o'clock at night and that's in the time period, say lights are available from 6:30 to 10, and they show up and want to play, they walk onto the court and the lights will come on.
Perfect.
And it costs about 25 cents an hour to run these lights.
Just as a side note, he did a lot of research on coin operated or
Okay.
other things,
Yeah.
but no one recommended doing that.
No,
because
they just
it's
get broke into.
Exactly. We have a couple of things that we're kind of working desperately on. One of them is getting our water system restored out here to bring water from the lake. We're waiting delivery of a new pump, and that will go in the lake instead of involved, and that should provide us all the water we need. And so we're trying to be prepared for when that arrives so we can get it hooked up as quickly as possible. Right now, we're watering everything with culinary water. And Alan asked me to figure out how much water we're sending to the park every day that they water. It's about 630 units, a unit being 100 cubic feet. 630 cubic,
Oh, God,
630
What
units
is it?
a
This is,
day.
this is an $8,000 a month water bill?
More than that.
10,000. Oh,
Yeah.
please.
So, so we want to keep that as brief as possible.
Do we have any recourse talking
Well,
about that
well,
against
Well,
I mean,
let's,
Mr.
so
Kramer?
it's, you know, we want to get our council meeting going here too, so,
Well,
I'll stop.
that's gonna be a question, so
Yeah.
think about it.
yeah, definitely.
So those are just some of the things we're working on in addition to the major projects that you all had a chance to look at.
So we're saying at the budget, this is a historic budget for the city. With,
Is
how much, about roughly 37 million, 36
Little-
million
little
dollars.
over
on
37
$52
million.
We need to show what that is and promote the heck out of it, because, you know, we need to show that we were working here and you were
Well,
working.
this opening thing to the budget.
Right.
I've had calls from folks that have read it and were just really excited about it.
Yep.
This is exactly what, you know, I know you went to Lake County News, but I love this. More of this is what we need.
We need the record beat.
Well,
Get with it,
I
too.
get nothing but compliments about what they're seeing.
So,
People that have
absolutely.
moved away and come back, they're like, I can't believe what you have done in the town and stuff. So, for a change, it's all positive. So,
It's getting there. We still have a lot to do.
well, we do, but you know what?
We're moving forward.
It took a lot of years to get here, not just from the city, but prior. So, probably was 100 and some years in the workings. So it's not going to happen overnight of the change.
Next few years, you're gonna be pretty proud.
Yes.
You wanna give an overview? real quick?
Oh, sorry, one more question before we move on. Measure B, it looks like you've moved personnel expenses around. Is that,
I'm not sure on the Measure
I don't think
B.
so.
it looked like it was,
Well, the supervisor one is not funded, so that caused a decline, I think, in the draw.
okay.
All the splits are essentially
Same.
they should be about the same as what they were before. There was a change with how we allocate unfunded PERS liability because there's so few classic employees anymore that before we would try to take and say, okay, you're a classic employee, we'll associate it with you. The reality is that cost actually isn't associated with you. It's whoever's held the positions in the past. So we actually normalized it across the entire budget, so it's fair to all. So that can cause some swings too. But position wise, there shouldn't be
I
anything.
mean, we shift things around a little bit. I mean, if you look in here, you can, oh, I can't do it. I'm gonna move this. But, well, so none of the Measure V positions, I don't think, are 100% funded by Measure V. So it's like a share of gas tax and a share of Measure V. And so if you look at the position allocation table, you can kind of see the positions and the percentage that are funded by that. But I don't think we really shifted that around other than taking Mike's old position, or actually Bo's old position and eliminating it.
Yeah, I just saw a 60K decrease, so.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a big chunk of
The
is that
supervisor.
position.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Along that line, I just want to point out, well, so the Measure V projects, we don't know what our bids are going to come in yet and how high they're going to be. I think the engineer's estimate is for all those is 2.3 million or somewhere around there. The amount that's allocated in this budget is like 450,000. It doesn't include any fund balance in Measure V from the previous year. We don't know exactly what that's going to be yet, right, until we close the books. But there's going to be a pretty fair amount there. If the bids come in over 2 million, the 400,000 and the fund balance probably won't be quite enough to cover the projects, but we have them all designed, ready to go. What we've discussed internally and what we plan to recommend to the council at the time you award a bid would be to essentially do a loan from some of our litigation settlement funds. You know, we have the cash there, do like a 1-year internal loan to go ahead and get the Measure V projects done. And then we'll pay that back with next year's revenue. So just a
Whatever
little
that
early
amount is.
warning on that. We'll talk about it more when we bring
So
that
it
forward.
all depends on the bids.
Okay, so I want to spend a bit of time, but just big picture, I wanted to point out that healthcare insurance premiums caused about $100-something thousand swing. So you talk about positions, it basically ate up a position.
Increase.
Correct, on the employer side, because of, the share that we take. Obviously with what actually gets filled and stuff, that can swing one way or another, but it was a pretty big hit this year. We got it halfway through the year, and it's an unknown. In December, they may do another increase too.
Is that through local 3?
Yes. Now, on the flip side is it's got a number of years where it basically didn't change or even went down. So, at some point it is expected, it was expected to go up. It just hit us rather suddenly. So we'll have to keep an eye on that in the middle of the year, and then that may come in for mid-year adjustment, but it impacts all the funds and the budget objects.
I mean, no, a different question. I'll ask it later.
We go now. It's
Okay, how did we end up with local 3?
Yeah, it's been local.
No
Since
idea.
I can remember.
I mean, that's a,
Local.
it's local 3. Is it union?
Yeah.
I mean,
So a lot of them-
engineers stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Operating engineers. I mean, I'm not sure that the rates that we've seen and we've had were actually pretty advantageous, and the levels of coverage that are offered. Not to say stuff could be shopped. I can tell you we had an absolute disaster with the supplemental products that we afforded to employees last year that took up more time than I want to count of trying to balance it out. So in either event, I think with them in particular, we'll just have to see. I mean, for all the years before, they kind of left it as is. I think Kaiser, before they weren't increasing, but I think they basically followed with what their increases were. So we didn't see something that was like some exorbitant draw for money. And we have heard, in fact, I think city manager had experience with other groups where that kind of is going on. I think it's just the costs are going up.
Actually, I have Kaiser as a supplement,
Sure.
and it's been going down for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. And I think too, it depends on what, programs are available, where they get it through, all that kind of stuff. And, certainly it could be looked to explore, if there's other options or whatever that exist.
I mean, CalPERS offers healthcare plans now, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in the middle of looking at them for Lakeport Fire District when I'm on that board. And I mean, I think at this point, I think our plans are still real competitive with the marketplace.
Every year this question comes up, I think, about our healthcare. Because when I first got on, we just thought it was outrageous, and we realized that we couldn't find anything competitive wise that would make that a difference for us to change to anything else. So it just seems like it's an ongoing thing, but in all the years I've been here, I've never seen it where it was worthwhile changing. So.
Okay, because I think if I look at my own cost on it, it's gone down. And I think the reason is that we have more virtual bookings and all that kind of stuff. So I think
It could be.
it should go down. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, I will hope for that so we can report back to you mid-year. We've got a surplus of health money and we can change it. Unfortunately, it's very hard to budget for because it changes mid-year. And so we don't know. So we're only budgeting based upon this year's numbers, but we tend to do okay. All right, so for the police department, we did do some adjustments in order to make the overall general fund to what it is that you see. So a community service officer position is now unfunded. The police part-time investigator, which was a half-time position, is unfunded. 2 part-time dispatchers are unfunded. A police sergeant is reduced funding to 75%. That's based upon when we think we can fill the position. There's a police officer reduced to 75% based upon a long-term industrial disability leave. And there's a police officer reduced to 50% based upon projected vacancy rates. Our intention is that we're still moving full force to fill them. And if we need to come back, then, and it needed an adjustment that came to your level, we'll bring it right back to you. And we think we could find funding to do that. From my perspective, nobody ever wants to give up positions, but we also realize that there's a lot of other important things going on citywide. They'll have much better longer term impacts if we can get those funded and filled. And that, talking about time drawing things, economic development, that sort of thing. There is funding in there. So the federal government, every time I give you the annual update, we talk about UCR crime stats. Well, UCR is no more. The federal government finally drew the line and said, we're only doing this thing called NIBRs, which requires a significant upgrade of our record systems. So that is built into the budget. And then we've worked in the ALPR funding, which is split between several different funds. So with all that stuff, we're able to kind of take and move stuff around and keep things as it's generally a status quo budget with the exception of the increases. Animal control is the same thing. It's actually a slight decrease, but again, based upon carrying things forward. As far as finance, obviously the finance director we talked about is fully funded in there. We do continue to make adjustments in there to get things to where it's the right size. And I think across all the funds, like the Public Works Parks Department, like to kind of right size where that's at, and including line item expenditures that Melissa pointed out, historically have always been under budgeted. And, power costs, what it costs, water costs, what it costs. So within there, in code enforcement, there is an increase in the abatement. So last year we had to drop it significantly. We restored that back. So there's money in there both for the towing side and also 2 property abatements. And I would fully expect we are conservative with the estimates for revenue from admin sites. If the numbers start to exceed the trend, I expect we'll be back asking for an adjustment to take that overage and put it right back towards, vehicle towing and abatement efforts.
Was it ABA, is that straightened out now that the county is getting?
It is. It's
like 40 grand.
Very small amount of what it costs us. But yes, it is straightened out. There is funding that's coming in through there. But our administrative citation process, I think, is working. And, the continued, and what I would ask for is that the council continues with an eye towards reinvesting that back into the problem as opposed to counting on it as some sort of revenue source. And the budget reflects that at this time. Measure P has in both special funds and the taxes, I think we talked about this last time, but there is a slight dip this year, which we've accounted for in here. And then it goes back up, but the dip is relative to the current fiscal year where it went up. The other thing is
much higher than what was budgeted, but lower.
Pension liability, our rates slightly went up, I believe, on the safety category. One nice thing though, in particular, like having the reserve and stuff, is we do have the ability to cash flow now. So before we had to make payments every month for the unfunded, which costs us additional money. We will be able to in July pay off the entire year, which saves us a pretty considerable amount of money for that 1 year's worth of payments. We also processed about a month or so ago, we paid off what was existing as the unfunded for the PEPRA tiers. We are going to get hit with a new bill for that because of the rate, which we explained last time, but that is
significantly less.
Yeah, it's less, and we continue to look at opportunities to.
We can keep doing it. It's manageable instead of letting it grow into the.
Just for you guys in the audience, we're still on the budget workshop. So we're going to start it probably in about 5 minutes on the council. Okay, just to let you know.
So yeah, and I think at mid-year, one of the things that we'll be back is to talk about if there's any extra, is how do we apply that as an extra payment towards the pension liabilities. But it's a big deal just being able to have the cash flow issue, because literally we're paying for interest for 1 year on $500,000 that we can now just pay up front and be done with it. So
that's great. I like that.
And I will be very glad to return back to policing things.
Well,
Wait, you're still our tech, right?
we'll be glad too, but you know,
You
you've done.
still have 8 other
Yeah,
jobs to
you
do.
have done a phenomenal job.
So, and on the finance thing, the other thing I would add too is just that our audit just finished. It'll be to you next month. But we're seeing, you know, the investments that were in there. There still is consulting fees in here to continue to get things right-sided. But what a difference, you know, being able to have the data all the way around for everybody to see what's going on and adjust. And, you know, it's pretty scary looking back when we were doing it blindfolded, but.
On
That's
top
been the
of,
problem the whole time.
on top of the information, how much time savings do you think you guys have achieved?
I think it's considerable for researching stuff. I think some of it is hard to quantify because it just wasn't being done. So it actually is some more time into it, but then now we're more informed with stuff. So I definitely think that helps. Payroll is the most significant. So right now we have one person, not that this is the ideal situation for a whole wide variety of other reasons, but doing both accounts payable and payroll. And we can get payroll out like within a day or two. Used to it take all week long plus overtime to do it. And it's much more accurate in terms of, you know, the system's calculations and that sort of thing. So
Good to hear.
I think that, you know, on the police side, the position things, we did the adjustment here, but it is going to continue to be a challenge. And I think that we do have to continue to think, you know, really citywide is making sure that we don't burn people out because, you know, that's why it's important to have office assistants, these sort of things. It's not like we have extra people just to farm off the work. Everybody's, you know, doing work here. But it's a challenge. And at the end of the day, we got to make this stuff balance out with the, you know, structurally anyway. So.
Yeah, I don't know. When I first got on, I used to have come in and ask for the trial balance of each account so that I could see what was in it because, and they always took offense to that because they're like, well, what do you think? I was like, I'm sorry, but I don't get it. And this is what I need. And obviously I just felt like they didn't get it. So yeah, it was a problem when I first got on, a big problem. It got a little better, but not a whole lot better. So I'm really glad to see that the accomplishments in just the last couple of years of what you guys have done in the finance part has been great. You know, it's so much nicer to be able to look, and I feel like that people can now look and actually trust us. And before there was always the argument of proving, you know, like giving them something. Even me as a council, they didn't want to give it to me. So I think this is really great that we have it online and people can see all this
It's
stuff.
updated every day.
Yeah, and you know, so to me is, you know, we're showing people exactly what we said we wanted to do, and that's be the transparent city. And I think this was how, you know, this is the biggest part to me, doing that. So you guys did a great job. Thank you.
Next,
There's no other
That's it.
questions or anything
That's
to
it.
talk about.
All
That's
right.
it.
All she wrote.
good.
Only
Thank
take an
you.
extra half hour.
Wow, not bad.
So you want
All
to
right.
take just a short.
Yeah, short break and then we'll reconvene.
Thank you all for putting that together.
Test. Test. Test.
Excuse me. We'll call a regular city council meeting to order at 14050 Olympic Drive, Clearlake, California at, let's see, 6:32. Madam Clerk, do we have to do a roll call again, or can we just proceed? Okay, great. Item is Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Overton, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we'll have a moment of silence thinking about the 600,000 people that have perished because of COVID-19. Thank you. All right, all items on the agenda will be open for public comment before final action is taken. Citizens wishing to introduce written material into the record at the public meeting on any item are requested to provide a copy of the written material to the Administrative Service Director, City Clerk prior to the meeting date. So that material may be distributed to the City Council prior to the meeting. Speakers must restrict comments to the item as it appears on the agenda and stay within 3 minutes time limit. The mayor has the discretion of limiting the total discussion of an item. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
One item, Mr. Mayor. So item number 13, which is related to our audit annual comprehensive annual report. You have the report itself in your packet. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it, but our auditor was unavailable to come tonight. Do I dare say? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, so item number 13, our auditor couldn't be here tonight, and we spent a lot of effort on this. You can see it's the 18-19 audit. Anyways, he's available on July 15th, and so we would rather just pull this one, and then he can have the opportunity to talk to the council a little bit more about it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that the agenda be adopted as modified by the removal of item 13.
We'll go on to presentations. Presentation of June adoptable dogs. Yeah. Oh. All in favor on the motion to adopt the agenda? Aye. Okay, we'll go now to presentation of June adoptable dogs. Charmaine is waiting in the wings there.
Thank you. So this is Dusty here behind me with the leash in his mouth. He's a 2 to 3 year old pitty mix, not neutered yet, but he does have a pending appointment. He's fairly active. He would do well with a family with sturdy kids that can take him out for a good run, brisk walk a couple times a week, but he would do well in a backyard. He loves to play with toys, chew toys. Occasionally we'll jump in the pool at the shelter. He does well with a routine. We can actually let him out of the play yard, and he is 7 kennels down, and he knows exactly which kennel is his, and will go right in, without distraction. He's heartworm negative, current on vaccines, just waiting for that neuter. We think he's about 2 to 3, probably closer to 3 due to his teeth. Not yet. Soon though. He's gonna. He does pretty well though for not being neutered. He's not gross or anything. So, and for further information, contact Clearlake Animal Shelter staff, Clearlake Animal Control Shelter staff at 707-273-9440. To see Dusty in person, you can visit the Clearlake Animal Shelter at 6820 Old Highway 53 in Clearlake, Monday through Friday from 12 to 4 p.m. by appointment. And I always bring treats. He doesn't know how to sit. Sit, Dusty. Oh. Oh, well. He doesn't know how to sit.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. A little update on the animal control statistics for the year. So far this year, we've had 183 dogs come into the shelter. 170 of those have left the shelter. 101, or about 60%, have gone to rescues. 51 have gone back to their owners, about 30%. 12 have been adopted. One has escaped, and 5 have been euthanized. So we went up a little bit from last time. So our live release rate is at 97.1% right now. So we're still doing really good with those numbers.
All right, this is time for public comment. This is a time for any member of the public to address the city council or any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought before under public comment. The council cannot take any action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on the next available agenda. Please note that comments from the public will also be taken on each agenda item. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment from Zoom? Nope. And there are no hand raised in the public here, so that's great. No public comment. We move on to the consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda? Anybody from the council want to pull any of the items, or any from the public wants to pull any of the items? If not, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, a motion made by Councilman Kramer to approve the consent agenda. We have a second by Councilman Claffey. All in favor? Aye. All right, we'll go to item number 10. Melissa Swanson, City Clerk, on item number 10.
You want me to?
You want me to give you the?
Yeah.
Melissa was gracious enough to do all the staff reports, but I can do a quick overview. So the appropriations limit is something that has to be adopted every year. There's a calculation that needs to be done that is based on population change and CPI that limits the amount a local government can appropriate for that year. The budget being a little higher than normal, we're actually closer to the appropriations limit than normal, but we are under that limit by a little over $100,000. So with that, I try to address any questions that you may have, but you can see the calculation and the background materials as part of the staff report.
For a motion.
Oh, hey, everyone. I make the motion to adopt resolution number 2021-32 of the City Council of the City of Clearlake adopting the appropriations limit for fiscal year 2021-22 and designating the formula to be used for calculation of the same.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilman Claffey and a second by Councilwoman Overton. All in favor? Aye. All right, we go to item number 11.
Okay.
Mr. Flores, are you reporting on this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I go away? I'm still here, but.
He's afraid to
Scared.
say something.
Seems like it's working okay. Okay, so we had our budget workshop. This is a resolution formally adopting the budget for 21-22. I don't have any other presentation to offer unless the council or public has any questions about the proposed budget.
Does the council have any more questions for City Manager Flora? If not, anybody from open up the public hearing. We have any comments on Zoom, Madam Clerk? Okay.
I have one person on Zoom with their hand raised, Elizabeth Larson. Go ahead, Elizabeth. We can't, can you unmute yourself? Ah.
Go ahead, Ms. Larson.
City Attorney Pucci, can you test your audio to make sure that we can hear?
I have. Good evening, members of council.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. I'm not sure why we're not hearing Ms. Larson.
Can she, maybe Elizabeth can call in? Oh.
Hold on one moment.
Okay, well, holding on.
She has emailed her question.
Okay.
She would like to know if this is the largest budget for the city.
I think our city manager could answer that one.
Yes, yes, it's the largest budget that the city of Clearlake has had.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, any more comments from the public up here? If not, we're going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any additional comments from council here at this point? If not, I want to, oh, Mr. Kramer, Councilman Kramer, please.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2021-33, adopting the fiscal year 2021-22 City of Clear Lake budget as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Kramer. We have a second by Councilman Claffey. All in favor?
Aye.
I want to make a comment on this. This is an historic budget within the city. This is bringing in a lot of infrastructure that is badly needed, and we finally going to get it done this year. And the budget is approved to do that at this point. All right, we'll go to item number, and our staff and our consultants that have worked on the plans to bring this infrastructure to bid at this point has been fantastic, and we really appreciate that. All right, next item is item number, no, that's it.
No, item number
One
12.
more. Adopt, next item, City Manager Flora, wanna,
Yeah, so each year as part of the budget process, the council adopts the fee schedule for that year. This is the same as 2021's fee schedule. We did do some initial work, primarily on our building and planning fees that we think are due for some adjustment. Unfortunately, we had some delays in our finance department being able to get that completed for this. So once our staffing there returns to normal, we expect to maybe bring some of those fees back and have the council consider them at some point during the year. But at this point, the fee schedule is the same as. Ms. Swanson, do you have something to add?
I just wanted to add that in the mid-year, your council approved changes to the code enforcement abandoned vehicle abatement fees, and those are reflected in this fee schedule.
thank you. All right, we have any questions from staff or from the council? If not, Councilman Claffey.
Yes, so looking through the fee schedule, the code enforcement hearing fee, can I get some context on what that is?
Let's see if I can find it. What page is this on?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So within the city code, if you look back historically, almost everything was coming to the council for a hearing. And so there's a cost recovery that was built into that. There still are several things that come before your council. And those require the posting of the deposit, basically to do any noticing, et cetera. We have been changing, and I think we'll continue to look for opportunities to change to delegate that to a hearing officer and so forth. That does reduce the barrier in some cases for individuals to file an appeal, et cetera. It also makes it more timely in terms of taking action. Like we brought up, for example, on marijuana abatements, we'll serve a notice, they'll quickly file an appeal, and then oftentimes they won't even show up, but it gives them some more time, minimum 2 weeks, sometimes up to a month before they can come. So that's what that fee refers to.
And then the other one was the low-income payment plan and the standard payment plan. Is that outsourced to a third party to run those payment plans?
Which
It's
page?
40220.
Oh, yeah, that's a vehicle code. Yes. So the processing agency handles all the indigent payment plans and so forth. They set all that up. And they also to review eligibility to insurance and compliance with the vehicle code.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, if no more questions from council, we open up the public hearing. Do we have any comments on Zoom or questions from Zoom? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, we do not have any hands raised on Zoom, and I did not receive any comments on this.
All right, we have any comments from the public in attendance here? If not, we'll bring it back to the council. Do we have any more questions or comments that we want to make? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the motion that we accept resolution number 2021-34, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Clearlake adopting the fee schedule for fiscal year 2021-22.
All right, we have a motion by,
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that motion.
great, we have a motion by Councilwoman Overton and a second by Councilman Kramer. All in favor? Aye. All right, we move on to our reports.
Hey,
Mr.
Mayor.
Flora, please.
Yes. So we talked about a little of this in the budget workshop, but we discussed the situation with animal control there, and we'll be looking at some solutions for animal control officers. The other thing related to police department staffing that I wanted to mention is just that, staffing levels are a little bit low. And so at this point, our traffic enforcement officer has been assigned to regular patrol. And so the regular focused traffic enforcement efforts that they had been making won't be as regular. Want to make sure you saw forwarded an email to you today, but PG&E notified us that there may be rolling blackouts tonight related to the high heat and demand. So this is not a PSPS event, but some type of rolling blackouts between 1 and 2 hours. We talked a little bit about Highlands Water and the Austin Park in the budget workshop, but there was one follow-up thing that I wanted to mention. So the mayor and myself went to Highlands's. Okay, so just to back up so that everyone has the background information, is that the pumping system that was originally installed in the park project has not been very effective, which is why we've been struggling with our lawn there. We recently, as an emergency solution, tied in with Highlands Water's municipal system, and we've been watering the park with that, but it's very expensive. They don't have a special irrigation rate like some districts do. And so we're paying the normal rate that a homeowner would be paying, or a commercial business for watering the park. It's about 6 acres of grass. And so the mayor and myself went to one of their board meetings requesting that they give us a special rate for irrigating the park because this is a public good. And I did receive a letter this week from them saying that they're not able to provide any type of discounted rate to us. And so, you know, it's very frustrating. I think it's very unfortunate that that's the case. But so we're going to be, you know, looking into what we can further to rectify the situation. Longer term, we are working on, Mr. Goodman's working on a new pumping system design. We've ordered a different pump, and we'll be installing that as soon as possible so that we can get off of Highlands Water and use it truly as a backup. But it's frustrating that we didn't get a little more partnership from that board on this issue. The Promenade project is coming along pretty well. You know, they got the sod in this week. Things are looking great. There's still a few pieces of that project that the supply chain has delayed. Our lighting being one of them. Not sure when that's going to be here and available. And then there's a seat wall, a concrete seat wall with some fish designs. It's kind of a long lakeshore drive separating the grass area. Those are going to be, well, the first load's getting delivered tomorrow, right? But it's going to be over a period of a few weeks. Unfortunately, I don't believe that that's going to be able to be installed prior to July 3rd. So it won't quite be complete. I would say that we went out there and walked it today. I really hope that we can take the construction fence down and have the community use that area, even though it's not complete, over the July 4th holiday. But we're going to have to make sure that the sod is well established before we do that. So that's probably going to be a decision that's going to be made next week. I mentioned earlier that we're anticipating our new finance director to be starting hopefully on July 19th, which is extremely exciting. And then there's a few items that have come up, and we're anticipating next Thursday the need to have a special meeting to deal with a few items. So I'm hoping that we can get some consensus from majority of you. We're thinking doing it during the day, say at 10 o'clock. It should be relatively short, 30 minutes to an hour, absolutely the most, but it should be a relatively short meeting. So yes, the 24th, 10 o'clock.
That won't be a problem for me.
Go and cancel your jury duty.
Maybe I can get it. I can be there. All right.
Okay. Okay, so I think that's all I have to report.
Yes, I don't have a lot. Had a Lake Links meeting last week. We went over the fiscal year budget, upcoming fiscal year budget. Probably the biggest thing on it, ridership is up, which is good. It's also got its bad side in that it's pushing our financial resources to cover our Pay Your Pal program. So we're looking at different funding options and possibilities. We have approached, I approached Supervisor Simon with regard to the Indian casinos in his area, and he thought that would be something they would help with, as a lot of the riders are, a lot of this cost is in trips to the casinos. So we're going to be soliciting donations from each of the casinos on that. That was the most significant thing on that budget. Other thing I had last Saturday, I guess it was, I attended a picnic out in the avenues on 37th and Canocti. Kevin Victorian and their group had invited us, so I attended. Chief White was also there, and 2 of his officers showed up, along with, I think, Councilwoman Overton and Mayor Slotin, although I had gone by the time he got there, and Supervisor Sabatier. Pardon me? Yes, I wasn't questioning why it was done. I just stating. So at any rate, there were 3 council people that did attend at various points during the barbecue, and I think the folks out there appreciated that we showed up. So that's all I have.
We already get the update on that one. One of the things I wanted to say is I was at the marketing meeting. You guys just couldn't hear me for some reason. So I don't know if there was a problem, because I have to call in because I don't have the speaker on. And I heard you guys just fine. So just to let you know, I was there. So just couldn't hear me. So not a lot going on with me this week. So I just wanted to say thank you guys all for a great budget. Very impressed. After 16 years, I think we might finally start getting this budget where it's something for the community to be able to see and understand. And I appreciate all your guys' hard work. The only other thing I have is on 38th Street. I understand that we just did some overlay over there, some oiling. And somebody might want to go back over there and look, because there's a big pile of dirt that either didn't get oiled or didn't get rolled down. And so just somebody might want to go look at that. So. Photo contest is going on great. so we have the photo contest going on as we do for that we've done in the past years. Melissa was wonderful to get all of that information out to the people. We got it. It's open now, and they can go online, and there's an application online and all the information on our website, on the Clearlake website. So you can go in and get all of that. And of course, if you have any questions, you can either call me or Melissa, and we can help you get that submitted. Melissa, can you tell me what the point of their pictures have to be? Because I know we had a controversy about it, but I didn't remember.
Let me pull it up real quick. In order to be able to be reproduced on our website or via printed photos on the walls, etc., we ask that the photos be a minimum of 1200 by 630 pixels and a maximum of 3 megabytes. So we need them submitted as a JPEG, a PNG, or a GIF file.
That's these pictures that we have printed on our walls here in our chamber. That's what we do with the pictures that are the top 10, correct? Or we're doing the top 10.
Right. And this year our theme is living the lake life.
Which means, what do you do living the lake life? We wanted to have our motto out there for our communities to show us what you do living the lake life. So we are not looking for scenic views this year. We're looking for activities. What do you do while you're in town, whether it has to be in Clearlake? So what do you do while you're here in Clearlake? You know, are you fishing? Are you swimming? Are you at the park? You know, playing on the playground with your kids, playing tennis, you know, at the skate park with the, so those are the type of things we're looking for this year, so that we can start showing people on our websites and stuff what we get to do here as, you know, living in Clear Lake. So submit those pictures. We're looking forward to those, and I'm kind of excited that we got it going again. So and thank you for reminding me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my PEG TV meeting was postponed for this month. We did have our marketing committee meeting, as Councilwoman Overton mentioned, and really went over a lot of the events that are coming to Clearlake that we're trying to organize. So I can run through them real quick. First, this weekend, we're going to have the Clearlake Shoreline Cleanup Day. That's meeting at Redbud Park on the 19th. Of course, the 4th of July events. We have our carnival where you can get tickets from the Tatanka shop down the street for the carnival. And then, of course, we have our big concert. Tyler Rich will be at Austin Park starting at 6 o'clock. We have 2 additional concerts that are planned right now for August 7th and September 11th, artists to be determined. The Clearlake Soapbox Derby is shaping up really well. The regulations haven't changed for this year. So if you had a car last year, you can re-enter that. We're also looking to put together a really great workshop so that folks who may not have the tools or the ability or the capital to build their own car, we're going to have some city staff come and put some kits together for the kids, and they can decorate them and hopefully race during that great event. And then lastly, we're looking to launch the Clearlake Kite Festival, something here at Austin Park to take advantage of our wind off the water. We're going to fill the skies with kites. That's something that the Chamber of Commerce is taking the lead on. So, and hopefully this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're having a lot of conversations about other things, but you know, really want to bring a lot of energy here to the newly refurbished Austin Park. And
so we are working on the Christmas festival, and Christy Kelly is heading that up. And so she's putting that together really well. So I just told her that we would be here to help her. She wants to do it along with the parade. So I think she's going to be working with Tina on putting that. So we're actually going to have a Christmas festival. I'm so excited. So yeah, so I just wanted, that's what I was trying to call in to let you guys know yesterday. But yeah, she seems excited to do it. And so I just told her that she can be the lead on it. And if she needed us, we would be there for her.
I visited also the little barbecue going on the avenues. It's great to see people involved. You know, this city is a democracy, and democracy is not is an active part that you need to play. So I like to see those kind of things. I also attended a community visioning forum planning committee. It's a plan that the county is starting, promoting tolerance, respect, equity, and inclusion in Lake County. And interestingly enough, the federal government, President Biden just signed a bill to a new federal holiday called Juneteenth or something, which is the Emancipation Day. This community forum wants to build bridges where there may be walls, foster tolerance, respect, equity, and inclusion, promote nonviolence and nonviolent conflict resolution, focus on resources, on underlying causes and conditions that lead to inequitable resources and justice distribution, bring relevant solutions for any social, economic, or environmental injustices as they come to light. You want to show me those 2 little slides that I sent to you, Alan? That kind of gives you an idea. There might be equality, but there's no equity. In the next one. So there's equality, equity, and liberation. Kind of a graphic representation of the issues that this committee wants to attack. I think it's a worldwide thing, and I hope that someplace down the line, the city here will also have a proclamation that is similar to the Board of Supervisors there. That's it. Thank you. Any other last minute comments? Any redos? If not, we go to future agenda items. Mr. Kramer, did you have something that you want to have brought forward, or is it something that you want to discuss with our city manager
Not at this
separately?
time. Is there?
Okay. About nothing? All right, me neither. So close the public meeting when the city council. We return in 5 minutes for our closed session.